What's happening, people? Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the Upper Tier podcast. Kind of a reflective kind of video here. Czechia versus Ireland, I should say. Review. Long ass night last night. I think the watch along went on for 3.5 hours. I think it was a long night for us anyway, that's for sure. And very little to show for at the end of it, in fairness. It was a tough night, you know. I think to a man, I think they did really well. I think they put in an awful lot of effort. They put 100% in last night, ran themselves into the ground. And I suppose looking at the wave of excitement and nervousness and everything else after the games in October or November, whenever it was, and I truly think if it was the old format and we were playing the qualifiers the following month in November the way it used to be, I think that wave of what we were on might have carried us through. Now, who knows what might have happened on Tuesday if we had got through. Would we have beaten a Denmark that were absolutely rampant last night against North Macedonia? So that would be a very difficult step to take again. But it would have been nice to have the opportunity to maybe go into it and test ourselves and see could we. But very disappointing this morning. The country all seems very quiet, nearly like it's in mourning. You know, it's so disappointing as well, because at a time where, you know, we're in a cost of living crisis, at a time where the country's really hurting economically, and you know the mood is down, you know, you need that little bit of hope that sports brings you and stuff like that, you know. And last October or whatever it was, Troy Parrott on the team, all the lads gave us that bit of hope, that opportunity that maybe come March we could go again and something special might happen. And let's be honest, last night we were by far the better team. You know, we were by far at times. I know they had that kind of period when Souček came on and stuff like that, which is not unexpected because he's a very good player. That it would level up a little bit and he would kind of control the narrative and stuff like that. And I think that was the time where we fell down. We should have really made changes there to counteract that Souček substitution, because we know if you look around the pitch, generally speaking, I suppose with the exception of maybe Collins and Queeveen, maybe Troy, he's levels above the others. He's a Premier League player week in, week out. I know West Ham aren't having the best season this season, but he's always that guy that they can lean on and stuff like that. And if they're going to get out of this relegation battle, he's one of those guys they will lean on. So we knew that that's where the danger would be. We were all shocked on the watch along when he wasn't even starting. So when he came on, we knew, and the Czech Republic knew we were on the ascendancy at that stage. You know, the boy Manning just having a head loss, grabbing the jersey when the player was running the ball out, you know, giving away that penalty. Certainly knocked us for 6 for a number of minutes in that half. But certainly in the second half, we were coming on the much stronger. And probably didn't want half time to come. Then they came out, Souček came on, and you know, they were kind of in the ascendancy a little bit, and then we wrestled it back again in the second half. We were at it again, and just fundamental little mistakes and key moments, you know, a slip pass here, a link up pass here, a recycling of the ball, whatever it is, just didn't work out for us. And then the boy Darren spoke about, I think it's Czechia or something, he popped up. You know, we were 4 minutes away or whatever it was from the promised land of having the real opportunity. I mean, this was really, last night was really the stag or the hens party to the wedding, really, wasn't it? And it just wasn't to be. And then you go into extra time and the lads had put in such an effort. even in extra time, I mean, they looked dead on their feet. We were constantly turning them. We were constantly getting in behind at times. And we were just unlucky a couple of times, to be honest. We had our opportunities. They looked dead on their feet. And certainly that second half of extra time, so unlucky when Smodics came on to get that injury. Look, we're thinking about him. We hope he's okay and stuff like that. It looked very, very serious. You know, and such a weird injury as well, wasn't it? It didn't seem like there was a whole lot in it. But then when you're seeing him shake and all that stuff on the ground, so worrying and concerning and stuff like that and all. So we hope he's okay and he's making a recovery. The reports this morning is that he's back conscious and everything else and all, so that's normally a good sign. So we're all thinking about Sammy this morning as well, you know. At times you have to park the narrative of what's important in this. You know, the welfare is so important. But losing him obviously was a kicker for us, you know, and it was a bit of a shell shocker and stuff like that. And on came the young boy, Harvey Vale, I think is his name, stuff like that, to make his debut. And look, he'll have many more good adventures and stuff like that, you know. He's a very, very good player for QPR. The same with Jimmy Dunn and stuff like that. Both those boys came on to do a job and, you know, tried our best. And certainly, if you look at that last 10 minutes of that second half in extra time, there was only one team trying to win the game, and there was one team clamouring to get the penalties, because they knew we were on the ascendancy. They knew we were the better team, and it was we just kind of ran out of energy. You know, Malumbi ran his heart out. You know, they all ran their heart. Collins and O'Shea, you know, Ogbene. Like, I mean, we couldn't even name individual players and stuff like that. I think everyone absolutely ran their heart out. I mean, if anything, I think Troy probably would say himself that it wasn't his best night at the office. He slotted away the pen a while, right, and stuff like that and all, but I think at times he struggled a little bit to get into the game. You know, and I think the boy Ogbene and stuff like that. But again, that's nothing. I mean, let's be honest. We wouldn't have been in that position last night if Troy hadn't done the business back in October and all, you know what I mean? So it was just one of those nights where, you know, a 2-0, we were so joyous. The bench, the fans, every boozer around this country, every household for that moment, you know, holding on to that what if, that hope. Is this our time? Has our time come? Will our luck continue? You know, and we, you know, those two goals, obviously the OG was a bit fortuitous and stuff like that, but, you know, there was no doubt on the penalty and stuff like that. And I just think sometimes when you go back to the well that amount of times, sometimes the bucket comes up empty, and that's what it was last night. There was no lack of effort. There was no lack of, you know, trying to get there and stuff like that and all. I think to a man they did us very proud. And you know, even parking the Kevin Manning thing, and you know, parking all that kind of stuff and all, I think, you know, Quavine in the penalty shootout, he always comes up trumps with a save, doesn't he? And we had that opportunity. And then obviously Azaz and Alan Brown, who you would have thought had put the ball through the net, missed. Couldn't believe it. Quavine had put us in the winner's circle, and just like that, less than 3-4 minutes later, it's whipped away from us, and our hearts sink, and reality sets in that we won't be going to the USA. And I'd say how FIFA would have clamoured to want Ireland at the World Cup finals. I mean, the level of Irish over in America and the interest would have been absolutely insane. To the point where I would argue, I would say we would have felt nearly like the host nation. So many Irish in America, and those that aren't Irish at times claim to have Irish great grannies or granddads or whatever it is and all. So it would have been insane. Like, that match potentially in MetLife would have been gigantic. I'd say the Irish could have sold out MetLife twice over. But look, it's all hearsay now, it's all history, you know. Now is the time to kind of reflect and prepare for a Euros, you know, and we can't be dismissive of the fact that the officiating last night was horrendous. And that's not because we lost, and it's not because we got knocked out, because we said it right from the get-go through the watch along. If you go back and watch it on the channel, we were calling out the officiating all night, to the point where a massive deflection on the deck that went out for a throw-in, the linesman couldn't even get it right. It was insane. I think the referee at times very much landed with the home team. I think it took an awful long time to start producing cards. I think the guys were throwing themselves on the ground. They were faking head injuries. You know, I mean, the Czechia people today, you know, they should be looking at their national team and they should be somewhat embarrassed today, you know what I mean, at the way in which they played the game. Yeah, you can be joyous, you can be happy, you're into the final qualifier against Denmark and stuff like that and all. But there's a way in which at times the game has to be played, you know what I mean, the nature of it and stuff like that. Winning is always the be all and end all at this level, you know what I mean, but I think we're more honest as a fan base in terms of Ireland fans and stuff like that. If that was our players doing that, we would call that out. We would call our own players out for that, you know. You could tell by the situation there last night and the way they were playing, stuff like that. You could tell why Czechia football is in the position it's in at the moment. In a real kind of poor place. But yeah, that's all we can do. You know what I mean? And that's like, there's nothing more else that can be said. I don't think we could have done any more last night. I think maybe, just with the exception of maybe making substitutions a little bit quicker. I think some of the lads were kind of dead on their feet, and maybe with 10 minutes to go, we could have maybe freshened it up there, maybe in the midfield, and brought on players that maybe could have stole it late on or something like that. You know, extra time was always going to be very difficult because we put in such a graft, and then on top of that, penalties is just a lottery, you know, and just so disappointing to go out that way. We say it with a lot of teams, even if you're watching other penalty shootouts, it's such an unfair way to decide a game. But like, what can you do? And like we said even before the watch along, and I think I spoke about it on Monday on the Monday mashup, if you go back and look at it, I said I don't know how qualifiers are staged in home grounds, you know, with such poor allocations. You know what I mean? I think the qualifier should be in neutral grounds with the 50-50 split allocation on the tickets. It shouldn't be one-sided. No team should go into a qualifier, because at the end of the day, when the qualifying system is done and then you're into the qualifiers, it's like the tournament within the qualifying tournament. And I think it was really a case, you know, you could see it last night as well. Now listen, no shade at the Irish fans. They were phenomenal last night. They were in full voice, and there was certainly more than 1,000 fans there. And fair play to anyone who made the trip out and supported the team. Nothing but love for all you guys. We know it was expensive, and we know you love your national team, and we know we'd follow them to the ends of the earth. That's how good we are. That's why in major tournaments they always want us there, because there's no doubt about it, in any major finals tournaments, having Ireland in there just makes it a better tournament. Just makes the feel-good factor, the fans, everything else, just a much better tournament. You know? We're absolutely joyous when we win. And, you know, we're so humble. And we'll smile when we lose. You know? And that's the reality of us as a fan base, you know? But I just think little things we could have done maybe last night, and like, hindsight's a great thing and stuff like that, but I did think we needed to react, and there might have been something in it for us, you know. But then, you know, you never know what might have happened then on Tuesday, you know, home advantage in the Aviva and stuff like that. And again, you know, that's what you're playing for and stuff like that, but to be absolutely handicapped in that first qualifier, you know, going to Czechia, you know, up against it, home advantage for them, 1,000 tickets apparently allocated. I mean, you're starting off on the back foot, aren't you? You're after climbing a mountain to get there. I mean, if you think about the 3 games we had to put together to get there, phenomenal. You know, I mean, we were rode off, there's no doubt about it. And then we get there, and you're right down at the bottom of the mountain again, trying to climb it up. Really, really, really difficult. That's really all I have to say on it, you know. I mean, in terms, you know, what can we say about the match, really, you know what I mean? I think at times we played some really, really good football. At times we just did not make the right decision in key moments, but no lack of effort. And there's a lot to take from this as well. You know, there's a lot of young players in there as well who will learn from this experience, that if they're back there in this position again, you know, they'll have a better understanding of it and stuff like that. But yeah, feels very raw at the moment, you know. Ted made a good point last night on the watch along as well. He spoke about how the Czechia players were up in the ref's grill constantly and stuff like that and all, and maybe that kind of swayed some of the decisions at times, and maybe we need to be that team. I kind of made the point that I think at times we're just a bit too nice. I think at times there isn't that kind of, you know, when you have to get into the trenches and really, you know, really understand what's unfolding on the pitch and stuff like that, and, you know, get up into the ref and let him know, look, this guy's fouled us 4 times now, you haven't even looked at it, you know, blah 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 blah, you know, just remind the referee of what's unfolding. But I think what happened last night, because this team and these players more often than not haven't been in that pressure cooker of a qualifier, I think you can get absorbed into these moments and not fully understand what's going on the pitch. I'm sure if those players watch the match back today, I'm sure they'll look at it and think, yeah, we should have been on that ref, shouldn't we? We should have been on that linesman. We should have been in their ear as well. But I made the point last night on the watch along that I don't think we have a player like that in if you look at the 11 side that started. I don't think we have that kind of player that can understand what's unfolding across the whole pitch, if you like, because you're so engrossed in your own position and doing your own job, and that's not a bad thing at times, because if everyone just focuses on doing their job, more often than not you'll be okay. But I think sometimes you need you know, the likes of a Roy Keane, or, you know, I don't know who else who you'd put in there, you know, that will step out of his position and have a go, you know, and set the ref straight a little bit. I'm sure that the place was fairly hostile as well, you know, and I'm sure the ref felt that, especially given Ireland the penalty. So that's all I have to say, you know. It's just disappointing now. There's the game on Tuesday, which is absolutely meaningless. I hope the fans turn out for the team. You know, they have brought us on the journey. They have given us moments. You know, they made us believe again. They gave us that hope. So hopefully there's some sort of a turnout on Tuesday. I don't know. Maybe the FAI and everyone else maybe need to look at the ticket prices or something like that. You know what I mean? A lot of fans have gone to Prague. And listen, there was thousands of fans over there that weren't even in the stadium. I know, because I know Ben's mates were over there. There was about 15 of them over there, I think. They didn't even go to the match. They were there for the fan zone and the beers and the atmosphere and all that kind of stuff. So, and it wasn't cheap. So a lot of Irish fans have spent an awful lot of money this week. And I'm sure fans last night spent plenty of money as well, because the bars were packed. You know, it really had that 1990, 94, 88 feel to it, didn't it? As a great man once said, a nation did hold its breath, but unfortunately this time we just didn't make it. So I hope, let's see what happens, but hopefully they get a turnout on Tuesday, and hopefully, you know, let's not dwell too long on the disappointment of this, and let's think about it more for building for the future. And as Ted said, now let's look towards the Euros campaign. You know, let's put our foot forward on that one now, and maybe, who knows, even go as far as that, like, maybe we may not need a qualifier. We always find it the hard way, don't we? But we may not need a qualifier. There's plenty of players there now who will learn from this campaign, and especially last night. You know, and the future's quite bright when you're bringing, you know, the likes of Jimmy Dunn in there, and, you know, Harvey Vale and stuff like that and all. You know, that's what we need to be doing. We need to be unearthing potentially these little gems and developing all the time and stuff like that. Get back to what we used to do when we were more successful, you know. That's it, folks. So until next time, folks, if you could subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification button, drop a like on the video. This is your match review. Going out on penalties always leaves a sour kind of taste. Don't forget, plenty of content going up. There'll be shorts going up today, videos going up today. No doubt we'll get reaction videos hopefully from the boys as well. And don't forget, check out Brent's show tomorrow night as well. 8 o'clock he'll be reviewing SmackDown. Always a great show, always fun as well. And we'll see what happens. Talk to you again real soon. Cheers, folks.